What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we talk about marathon training and I take you out on some of my workouts, what shoes I'm wearing, all that good stuff. But today is going to be a recap of my virtual New York City Marathon 2020. Roll the intro. Okay, so first things first, we're gonna just recap the overall stats of what I did out there. Obviously, I ran 26.2 miles. I averaged 9:09 mile pace. Total elapsed time was 3:59.57, but the marathon time was 3:59.46. I'm like 99.9% positive on that. 528 feet of elevation gain. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but that was about what I expected. 3,500 calories and average heart rate 167. That again is to be expected. I was going pretty low pace, but obviously over that amount of time, you're gonna eventually start working harder. But a couple things I did want to talk about was in general, I thought my pacing was really good for only my second marathon ever. It was very consistent. My mile splits were almost always between kind of an 8:40 and a 9:20 range, which is exactly what I was going for. I didn't have huge expectations other than I knew that this was going to be much better than my previous marathon because it was only my second one and it's been 2 years, a year and a half. It's been a little bit since I ran a marathon. So being that this is my second one and I knew that I was quite a bit fitter, I just wanted to make sure that I locked in and went for that 4-hour mark and we hit it on the dot. But there was two moments that I do want to kind of point out in the race. I'm going to call it a race. In the race where I kind of let myself down, I think. It was at the 13th mile. My split was an 8:12. Granted, it was downhill a bit. It was like a negative 50 feet mile. So it really was a downhill mile. But I felt like I needed to have a little bit more control in that moment, being that I did also have I was a little bit on the struggle bus for the last couple miles. So I think having a little bit more control in that half marathon, the mid-teen miles, would have maybe given me a little bit more control later on. That being said, the second point I wanted to talk about was the 24-mile point. I had an 11:52 mile, and that was because, as you saw in the previous video, if you haven't watched the actual video, I will link it above. The 24th mile, I was feeling pretty darn cooked, and it was also a turnaround point where I met up with Emily, took a sip of Gatorade, took a bite of a protein bar, and really didn't want to keep going. I mean, it wasn't nearly as bad as like other moments I've had in previous races. Like it was fine. It was a low level tantrum, but like I was feeling cooked and it was kind of at the point where like, all right, it's not fun anymore, but we got to do this. So I think if I had a little bit more control, maybe that's something I just learned with more marathons. Again, this is only number 2. But yeah, overall takeaways, kind of crushed it. Okay, and the second topic I wanted to talk about was the American Tobacco Trail. Obviously, I did not run this New York City Marathon in New York. I ran it right here in North Carolina, and I was out on the American Tobacco Trail, which I don't normally run on, but it is a lower elevation and very long trail. I think it officially runs like 25 plus miles if you do it from start to finish, but it would just seem like a really good place for me to pick and go out on. So a little bit more about that. I did start at the southern trailhead and I headed up 12 miles, back down 12 miles, and then did just like a mile and a half out and back to make sure I got the distance. Now, the first 7.7 miles of this was kind of on a softer surface, but I thought it really was like now that I've done it, I thought that surface really functioned well for all of my training that was done on pavement and roads. It was really packed down. So it wasn't like I was trying to take, my road marathon and do some of it on a trail. It definitely, it was a beautiful place. It definitely felt like a trail in terms of the atmosphere, the trees and everything. But in terms of the surface, I thought it was more translatable to pavement than running something than like actual trails or something along those lines. And that being said, the other half was on pavement and I had run that section before. So the elevation, that 530 feet, it was to be expected. It was a little bit, I think, difficult for me in the last leg because there was kind of essentially two big elevation humps. One that was obviously about 5 miles in, and then in the last 5 miles when I was coming back on the 12 miles out, 12 miles back. So there was a couple humps in terms of the terrain. Like in retrospect, I would do a virtual there again. Bottom line, if I was training for a road marathon, I think it would be a really good place to do it again. The surface did not hinder me in any way, and it was kind of new. So it was kind of fun to get out on a new like course, I guess, as opposed to where I normally do my long runs, which is on the other side of town. So yeah, the American Tobacco Trail. It worked out real nice for me. Okay, so the third and final topic I want to talk about is the Nike Zoom Fly 3s and how they performed for 26.2 miles. Now, I've only done about 50 miles in this shoe, and it is my first Nike shoe. I have no plans of being, like a Nike guy, but I did want to at least try out one shoe. I did try on a bunch of shoes, and I thought they were super comfortable. So I went with them, and I took them out. So I thought they were very consistent throughout the run. They were responsive, firm, and I think it gave me a good idea of what running with a carbon plate really is like. It's not, the cushion soft ride. It is very responsive. It is relatively firm, but it kind of has to be because it's not nearly as malleable as like a nylon plate or just a regular midsole. So that's something that I think I had to get used to a little bit with this shoe. They felt kind of firm and hard, but ultimately I think that is the carbon plate doing its work. And I thought it really kind of did that in the sense that, I ran, a much better marathon than I ever have in the past. One final note I wanted to say about the Nikes is that it did make me want to run faster, I think. I think I had control and I was aware of it, but there was definitely moments where I was like, wish I was running a 10K because these shoes would be baller for that. So I will definitely be doing, some 5K and 10K stuff in the near future. I'm kind of on a mid block, a mid window between this marathon and the February or March 2021 Wilmington Marathon. Hopefully that happens in person. No one really knows what's going to happen in this world. But in the meantime, I have a lot of kind of time to work with. So I'm going to be doing some trails, some 5K, some 10K stuff. And I think these Nikes are really going to be perfect for that type of training. All right, scubas and scubettes, that is going to wrap up this video. Hopefully you got something out of it. I want to especially thank all of you who contributed to fighting Parkinson's research with me. I got more than enough donations when I challenged everyone to 10 donations of at least $26.20. I have pitched in my $100, and right now we're sitting at about, I think like $2,600. So we raised at least $300-400 just in the last week while participating in this virtual marathon. So huge props to everyone who participated. Thank you so much. Huge shout out to anyone who also ran the New York City Virtual Marathon in their own backyards. It is not easy to run a virtual by yourself. Obviously, I guess most virtuals are by yourself, but it's not easy to run a marathon, period, by yourself. You really have to motivate yourself and kind of create your own race day, even though the people around you might just be on a nice little walk. So that is going to wrap up the video. If you got anything out of it, please like, comment, or subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. We got plenty of stuff coming your way. That's it. Finish the video, Kyle. All right, that's it. I promise. There should be 2 videos up right now for you to pick from, so you can watch those. But this one, I promise you, is totally going to end any second now. Oh, man. The end of these are always a bit weird. I like to run them out like this, though. Maybe I'll also make it like cut myself off like mid